For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Congressional leaders have agreed on a $1.2 trillion spending package, facing a tight deadline before funding expires midnight Friday for several key government agencies. The more than 1,000-page bill includes Republican demands for more border security. Democrats say it includes a $1 billion increase in funding for childcare and Head Start early education grants. The funding bill excludes monies for UNRWA, the United Nations aid agency for Palestinians. Israel's accused 12 of its staff members of participating in the Hamas October 7th attacks in southern Israel. The UN said Israeli forces tortured its staff into false confessions and has yet to receive proof of the allegations, though it has launched 2 investigations into the claims. The U.S. was UNRWA's largest donor, giving up to $400 million annually. Israeli forces continue attacks on Al-Shifa Hospital in northern Gaza and are issuing evacuation notices for the thousands of patients and displaced people trapped inside. Witnesses say forces have shot at innocent people trying to flee. Meanwhile, the U.S. has presented a resolution at the United Nations Security Council that calls for a ceasefire in Gaza and release of hostages. The U.S. has vetoed several ceasefire resolutions, noting they did not include condemnations of Hamas or hostage releases. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will travel to Israel this week as part of his 6th urgent mission to the Middle East since Israel's war with Hamas began in October. This week, he's met with leaders in Saudi Arabia and Egypt. Canada's foreign minister says her government will not approve new weapons export permits to Israel until it can ensure the weapons are used in accordance with Canadian law. The Canadian announcement comes after Parliament approved a non-binding resolution calling for a halt to arms exports. Eileen Alfandary reports.
In an emotional debate in the Canadian House of Commons, New Democratic Party member Heather McPherson pointed to the death and destruction that Israel has inflicted on Gaza in the past 5 months.
Hundreds of thousands of Canadians have demanded the government of Canada impose an arms embargo on Israel. How can Canada continue to engage in the kind of trade while children continue to be killed and extremist ministers of Netanyahu's government encourage this violence?
Melissa Landsman is a member of the Conservative Party who has described herself as a strong Zionist. Despite language in the resolution condemning the deadly October 7th Hamas attack and hostage-taking, Landsman denounced the resolution, saying it rewarded Hamas.
Does not hold Hamas accountable in any way, does not call for the surrender of Hamas.
The resolution also demands an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and access to humanitarian aid. The government forced removal of language saying that Canada should recognize the state of Palestine and should sanction Israeli officials who incite violence. Vermont Independent Senator Bernie Sanders said in a statement that given the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, including widespread and growing starvation, the U.S. should not provide another nickel for Netanyahu's war machine. I'm Eileen Alfandary.
European Union leaders are gathering for a 2-day summit to consider new ways to help boost arms and ammunition production for Ukraine in defense of Russia's invasion and discuss the war in Gaza. Ukraine's munition stocks are desperately low, and Russia has more and better armed troops. New plans are on the table to use profits from frozen Russian assets to help rearm Ukraine and give its defense industry a boost. Russia's vowing retaliation should the EU take that step. In the U.S., 4 former deputies in Mississippi have been given lengthy prison sentences for torturing 2 black men with a stun gun, breaking into a home without a warrant, raping one with a sex toy, and shooting another in the jaw with a gun, then devising a cover-up that included planting drugs and a gun. U.S. District Judge Tom Lee sentenced Christian Dedmon to 40 years in prison and Daniel Updike to 17 and a half years. Malik Shabazz and Trent Walker are attorneys for the victims.
Let this be a strict warning to all gangs in police departments all across America. Let this be a strict warning to all rogue police officers in the United States of America that you will not get light sentences, that you will not be let off easy.
To see Christian Dedmon, who Eddie described as the devil, and to see the devil get his due on this day, we just have to say, all glory to God.
2 other former deputies were sentenced Tuesday to 20 and 17.5 years. Another former deputy and a former Richmond police officer will be sentenced today. The 6 pled guilty last year. They were part of a gang called the Goon Squad. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.